thank you everyone joining us for the Asset and Investment Review Task Force. It is August 15th and got a nice agenda ready for us all today, so should be a very exciting meeting, and hopefully Audrey and Cameron will be able to join us. So let's just, I think we all pretty much know each other. Let's look at the minutes. I guess we need to approve minutes of from the June 25th, our last meeting. Any questions on the minutes or comments?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you. All right, so part of the legislation included procurement for an investment study, and so we have contracted with TUR Partners, and they will be working in collaboration with the University of Chicago to conduct an independent study that includes evaluating whether placing a portion of public reserves on deposit at local banks can provide added value to Utah's economy. Mark Stisser from TUR Partners is online, and he'll be observing this meeting and will take a more active role in future discussions. So thank you, Mark, for joining us. The next item, public entity reserves data. So
Marlon,
yes,
just ask a question on
yes, sure.
Because I tried to read on the state web procurement website.
The RP.
Never really got into that. I could never figure out how to navigate that.
Oh, okay.
But I just wanted to make sure that we're focused on the deposit side of it, right? In terms of what happens when the money's when and if there's a deposit in a bank, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's looking at that option essentially as one of the elements of reserves and the impact that would have on
the economic.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So thank you.
Do we know the timeline on that study?
So we're starting now, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Is the idea to have it completed before we report to
Let me pull up the timeline.
yeah,
because we report interim in November, right?
right.
Okay.
Yeah, so we do one here.
You can go ahead and move on and I'll pull that up.
Okay. All right, so the state auditor's office has been working on data and the information on the reserve balances. So I'll turn it over to you, Alex, and Marcy.
Yeah,
Show us what you got.
we're excited. Yeah, Marcy, go ahead and we'll get our screen going. I think we've got almost every recommendation or request from last time, except for the budget versus actuals, but we made really good work on a other project that I'm very confident we'll be able to start pulling some of those out for next time. So exciting stuff there. Marcy, take it away.
Okay, great. So we took some of the suggestions that you guys made from our last meeting, and I'm just here to show you some of those adjustments and everything. So one of the things we talked about last time was inflation. So we now have this adjust for inflation bar that you can switch on and off to adjust to $2024. So it's easier to compare when we want to see how inflation is affecting those values. So as an example, right here, we have like some bar charts where we have the unrestricted cash and cash equivalents for 2023. When we flip this bar on, it will take a second to load, and then these values will be adjusted here for $2024. The other thing we added for that inflation, so we have a view inflation table just so you can see where we're getting our values. We took it from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So we just averaged out the CPIU and then included our conversion factors in case you guys want to look at all of those to see how we are
Can we
changing.
trust those numbers? I'm sorry.
I
Sorry. Maybe shot, Jill.
And if you have other inflation metrics you want us to apply, let us know. Happy to include them. Cool, keep going, Marcy.
Yeah, so we have those conversion factors just for you guys to see, and then one thing to note for the adjust for inflation. This will adjust every like graph in here, every monetary value, we've kept that at the top. So hopefully that's more obvious about what that does. We also have now separated our deposit and investment report types from December and June. So we can view those different months since each entity submits for those 2 months. Next thing that we have added.
Oh, we just go back up just real quick. I want to make a quick note.
Up here,
No, this, we have all those additional selections. Right above this too. There you go.
oh, yes, yeah. We have a bunch of these additional selections now, so instead of just viewing unrestricted cash and cash equivalents like we had last time, you can view everything from like total revenue to total expenditure, and you can just click on it. It will switch those graphs that apply, and then you'll be able to see those different value types. All right, I think the next addition that was made going down from here is we added in addition to, we had a heat map of the percent change, which is down here, but we also wanted to include a heat map of the actual dollars, because some of those percent changes, it's like one entity started with like, we'll say like $10 and like 1,000, so we're not just looking at that and being like, why is that like increasing so much when it's not truly that big of a value? So that's been made so it's easier to view. And then we also have those selections to view all those different metrics. We now have included an Explorer by bank. In this selection, bank is an imperfect term since we're looking at qualified depositories and custodian or like keepsake locations. But for the most part, you're able to select bank now. So right now we have our selection designs. We can look at like Wells Fargo as well. Click on that and see those different ones based on like market value. We also have it available to switch if you don't want to look at market value. You can look at the cost value or the book value.
Wait, can you explain that a little bit more? Market value of the bank, is that what we're saying, like? The total bank
Think like all the
capitalization,
deposits they have.
their total deposits?
Hmm.
Okay, where did you get that information?
Total deposits of the governmental entities that have reported, so.
Oh,
all
total
the
deposits of the governmental entities that are in that particular bank, from the DNI report, correct? Okay, I was very clear.
Yes, so we now have those just showing that and then the amount held by banking type. And then I think the other graph we have added, there was a mention of looking through local, national, and regional banks. We have that in our miscellaneous file. These were done through looking at various banks and seeing how many locations they have, where they operate and everything. And then in addition to all of this, we've tried to make this more user friendly for everybody. Made it easier to scroll down, select things, and I think we have most of the mobile kind of stuff done as well, right?
Yeah, you can even look on your phone, but I don't recommend it.
It's still easier to look on a laptop or anything.
Yeah. So any questions on those, or would it be okay if we dived into a few interesting kind of analytics?
I have maybe one question, is there a graph that shows, I know you have one graph that shows multiple years. So is there a way that you can get a graph that has, because I can see how you can select a year so you can get all the data, but is there a graph that shows trending over years?
Yeah, totally. So let's just say we did unrestricted cash equivalent. This is the government type level, so we pulled all the school districts, right? So you can quickly see every school district, what they have. But if you scroll a little lower, you can now see their median, and how that's changing over year. So of all the school districts, that's the median. If you wanted to say compare school districts to charter schools. You come over here, select them, it's gonna take just a sec, it's turning through a lot of data. It's then going to put another line chart where one line is going to be the school districts, the other one would be the charter schools. So
Okay.
you can see charter schools, their median is pretty low relative to school districts, not
Right.
surprising, but. All these other ratios, though, now you can also do similar comparison to compare different government types as well. We don't recommend you select more than 5, it gets a little hard to read them, but you can see, in general. In a lot of these ratios, school districts are above charter schools, which isn't necessarily a good or bad thing, but allows you to compare government types pretty easily.
Yeah.
You can compare deposits, investments, so super cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, does that answer your question?
Those ones are really good, thank you.
Then a chart that doesn't have years on it, right? It's like this one does have years, but this one over here doesn't. It's just 2023. Wow. So a little tricky. It's hard user interface wise to show all these different things in one spot, but trying our best.
Sounds really good.
Let us know. Yeah. What other questions we got before we maybe highlight some things we found? Cool, I'll take that as a go ahead. So one kind of interesting thing that's been coming up a bit in the press, and I think also motivated some of this was school districts and their reserves, right? And one thing that I find kind of interesting is contextualizing that against other government types. So this little what we would call a highlight table on the outlier detection tab, what it does is it's going to color the different columns in the table so that the highest value has the brightest yellow and the lowest values are almost like white, so that the bigger values are very easy to see, right? We've done that for each year and done this by government type. And this is just the straight total, no change. What you would see is like association of governments right here. We have 78 million total unrestricted cash and cash equivalents for all, I think, 6 AOGs. We have all the charter schools here. And then here we have the cities, right? And on smaller screens, this doesn't look as pretty, but that's $5 million. And so they're pretty high yellow, but then school districts are the next one. And you can also like do some nice little sorting. So if you want to see like in 2024, who were the higher ones. And you can also see how this changes over time, the colors as well. And so this can help you understand where we do start flagging that year over year change, which ones are growing and shrinking. So this darker blue is usually a lower negative value. The red is a positive change. You can see local and special service districts have a big shift or a big decrease. And if you go up here to this table, it will correspond, right? They really did have that change in their total unrestricted cash and cash equivalents.
So when you mark them high or low, yellow, what's the relative scale? Is it just higher than everybody else, or is it in relationship to total budget, or you know what I mean?
It's in relationship to other government types. So what we would do is
Based on percentage change year over year, right?
Mhm. So what we would start with is we take all the cities and their unrestricted cash and cash equivalents value, right? We would sum that up, and that's the number you see in 2024. We would do the same thing for 2023, same thing for 2022, and we've done that for every government level. So if you want to know the totals, like what's the total unrestricted cash and cash equivalent for any government type, this table would show you that.
There's 670. What's the 678 below that?
Yes, it's kind of.
Sorry, it's just cut.
Hundreds, tens, ones.
Oh, that's.
It's just, yeah, it
small.
just needs a bigger
Sorry.
sign.
If you do it like this, it's a little harder for you to read, I think, but then you can see that.
Yeah, it looked like 5 million, but it's 5 billion.
Okay, I think this is me and my lack of knowledge of governmental accounting that I realize I need to be better at, but is it taking into account like large capital projects and that there might be a buildup of funds and then a large drawdown? Is that reflected by this, or is that eliminated so that that's not part of how we're examining this?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. The different types of government activities would warrant a big cash reserve. And the idea behind the unrestricted cash and cash equivalents that we pull out of the aquifers is it's not necessarily assigned or restricted for like a large capital project.
So if they bond for a new building, that's a separate line item that you're not pulling data from.
Yeah, and we might have like pulled that, or you can capture that into some of these other kinds of values that we pulled out. So if you said, I just wanna know your total. Total revenue for the entire entity, total governmental fund balance, right? So just the total balance you have extra, in your governmental funds, we could select that and you'll see these all change.
Okay, so going back to what I was trying to get to the bottom of school district, the number is what?
Bit of that right here.
Yeah, sorry.
You're all good. So school districts last year was 4.6 billion.
Okay. And charter schools was 480 million,
430.
430 million. And that's total school districts, total charter schools. Like if we did it by number of students enrolled, I mean, charter schools are about 11% of all the students. You say I'm getting at it, so how do we, it sounds like to me that number's relatively high for charter schools, given the
Yeah, so if you look
market
at, I think,
share.
if you look at like 2018. Charter schools had 121 million. And now they're at 431 million, so the percentage growth. Is actually higher than the districts, right? So why are they white and the districts are yellow?
Yeah,
There's gonna be more charter schools for one, right?
Yeah.
well, but it's a percentage of the total kind of market, if they're only 11% of the student population.
But has that been constant since 2018?
And it hasn't changed that much, but you get into, like, for example. School districts have property taxing authority, so they may not feel like the need to reserve as, have that. Nest egg, I guess, cause when the push comes to shove, if they need more money, they can go and raise property taxes and go through annexation such. Charter schools just don't, I mean, they don't have any. So they may be, maybe they're hoarding, I don't know, but. I'm just saying, yeah, the school districts and the cities are the big numbers, but. Relative to what, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, in this graph, what I would say is relative to other government types.
Yeah.
As a whole, right? But I agree, there's a lot of context and nuance within each one of those government types. Where they're gonna have different strategies, different behaviors. And so what I would say is, I wouldn't view this chart and say like, oh, because you're higher, it's bad, or when you get to these change where we want to count who's changing over time, that's necessarily good or bad.
I guess what I'm trying to understand is why are some of them highlighted as being yellow and others not, when I see more drastic percentage changes? I thought it was based on a percentage change year over year.
So think each one of these tables
Yeah.
is its own color scheme. So this one is just in this table, what are the high values, right? See how
But not high relative to itself, just high in general,
high.
because I'll
in this table.
because there's certain entities that are of much larger size, so. I thought it would be based on percentage change, not based on total value, because that doesn't really tell you much, because obviously we know
Yes.
districts have more money than charter schools. That doesn't mean that they're worse offenders of aggregating more cash than charter schools, right?
100%. So think of it like,
So it seems like you would highlight the ones that have the largest percentage change, not the largest dollar
Yes.
value.
yes, and we do. This is just to help give context. So you start with the absolute dollar. This next one's the dollar change. This is your
Okay.
percent. So that your
Okay.
percentage, you now have understanding, because if you see 5,800% increase for educational foundation or component units, that looks alarming. But when you then scroll up and look at them, it was because they had a change.
Okay.
408,000 to 37 million, which that is a big change. But relative to everybody else, dollar wise value is not, at least in my opinion.
Okay, so now look at charter schools on the percentage change.
4%.
Yeah. So this is year by year percentage change, but does it show like an aggregate over that 5-year period? Who's had the biggest aggregate?
Not on this one. but
Change.
yeah, It's a great idea.
Cause to me, that tells you, year to year, there could be some nuances, but. The 5-year
Like a
overall
rolling-
change, yeah.
A rolling 5-year, right?
Yeah, exactly. The 5-year change is gonna be the most telling because. A lot of the special projects and stuff will wash out over that time frame.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Out of 5
Does
years.
the red and pink drops and blues increases, is it?
Yeah, I think like it's a little tricky and we can get rid of the colors if those are confusing or like taking away from it. But if you put it on a scale, your lowest values are going to be red and your highest values are going to be, or excuse me, opposite. Your lowest values will be blue, your highest value that are positive will be red, and then values close to 0 or the middle of change are going to be lighted. So when you have huge variations in percentage, it makes some of these a little wonky, but the idea would be the red ones would have high increases and we'd be interested in looking into those. So,
But those are all increases,
yeah,
Yeah,
just,
the biggest increases.
I just can't see very well, but so when you're talking, charter schools, in 2018. It's a 64% increase,
yep.
and that wouldn't be a red,
It's not a red just because if we scroll through the table, there's gonna be one right here that had such a large increase that that color scheme relative to that percent change. It's not as big, so it's all lower end. It's weird.
so one redevelopment agency project. So it's relative to the other changes, and that may not, maybe we just need to say increases over 20% would be pink, and then anything over 50% would be red. Yeah, I mean,
That's a great idea.
Well, and that's why I think the aggregate over the 5 years, is the more telling number, because if you look at this, these development agencies, they also have budget in years, so there's. Obviously a lot of fluctuation, but they're not necessarily, they may not be accumulating permanent. Permanent cash balances in that time period, if that makes sense, it's just volatile,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
so like the 5-year number to me would be the one,
Okay. I think these are great ideas, so we'll add in a 5-year rolling change, so folks can have it a little more smoothed out. And then we'll harden the color scales so that maybe like anything negative is going to be a blue, some kind of shade of blue, and anything positive will be some shade of red, not based around the data in the table, but centered around 0. Does that sound good? Okay, look at those changes, those are super easy. Stepping away from the confusing color palette though, hopefully this can help you guys see government level. Who's and what government types are increasing and decreasing year over year. And one thing I find kind of interesting is you go to like it's almost all positive. Right? You have a couple down here, district health, non-profit URS contributing redevelopment agencies that are non-positive, but like these are kind of funky entities anyway. These are nonprofits and I think we only have 1 or 2 district health entities. So as a government type, I almost think you could ignore these two. So if you look, it's like positive growth for everybody in 2021. Almost near positive growth for everybody in 2022. The redevelopment agencies have a little bit of fluctuation. Well, interlocal also have negative side. But for the most part, I think like these trends are fine for everyone. So it's like it's positive, but there's huge differences in the percentage where your cities, independent quasi states, growing a lot more relative to other government types.
Right.
Whether that's good or bad, we'll let you guys decide, but hopefully the data is making it clear who is those rates. Cool. What other questions? Has this created more confusion? Are we feeling good about it? So, yeah. Some other interesting stuff. I do want to just bring this to the group's attention. We go to this government type over here, and we scroll to the bottom and we look at total market value per year. This is for investments. One interesting thing is this 2022 spike in treasury securities. This is for school districts and charter schools we have selected. I'm trying to figure out what motivated that spike, and it looked like a big one was Provo City School District bought a lot, which totally fine, but this led to another weird data quality bug I was running down, which is there's 364 records in the GNI reports of about 89,000, so 364 out of 89,000, where this submission in the reporting system happened within a second, and they're identical otherwise. So I don't know if they're actually duplicates, but they kind of look like duplicates. So we'll run those down. There's not many of them.
You're saying that it's security types?
Under security types.
Here's what's happening, you got investment advisors. And they have clients. And they're going buying a big lot of the investment and and then just allocating it to all their clients. Pro rata. So that they're all getting that position the same day.
Gotcha.
So it might be the same
Yeah.
treasury.
Yeah.
Divvied
Yeah,
out
but
a
maybe
lot
out
of
to
different
all of their
accounts.
clients the same day.
Okay.
So that's probably what's going on.
Okay, we'll look a little more into it. We can talk a little more offline, but I just wanted everyone to be aware of that specific one. I think it's true, like that's what's in the actual raw data. We haven't tweaked it at all, but it could just be a little.
Okay, so so this doesn't have the PTIF broken out as a separate. thing. This is the actual underlying investments, right?
Those are the deposits. So PTIF.
Okay,
You're under the deposits little tab. You have your sweep, savings, money market.
okay, so that's deposits, but investments. Oh,
So.
okay, so these are all non-PTIF investments is what we're saying, okay. Yeah,
And is that a subset of unrestricted cash or separate from unrestricted?
This is separate, so.
So they have unrestricted cash and that stuff.
Yeah, so think like we have 3 data sources in this dashboard. So we have the annual comprehensive financial reports. So that's gonna be your unrestricted cash and cash equivalents, those kind of metrics we were showing you up above. So the ACFRs are gonna be all of this data, all these government level metrics, as well as all the ratios. So that's coming from the ACFRs. Then the deposits is coming from the deposit and investment reports. And then the third data source is the investments, and that comes from the deposit and investment reports. So.
but I think since you have equity listed up there,
mm,
should it be an allowable security type?
Equities,
Yeah. So equity, so we gotta, unless it's like preferred
that's what they're in.
preferred shares or
Yeah.
something, but if they're listed as equities, it either it's and it could be exempted fund, if it's
Yeah.
universities, it could be like some of their big exempted endowments or something like that they're reported on.
Yeah,
That's what gets sort of reported on, but definitely that's outside of the
that's so.
constraints of the money management.
Okay. I'll check in with Ann on those, but these are just, it's coming.
Those are the categories that she listed.
Yeah, the categories in that report that those submitters are gonna select for. And enter that information under, so it seems to be. At least an option we can select.
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of interesting. It's fun, I think. Take some data that we've all been collecting for a while, get it out, because it gets better when it gets used, we can then be like, that looks a little fun. What's going on there? So super fun. So. What questions do we have about this? We could pick some other government types.
Super
Because
I'm like, wait.
Yeah, now we get to interpret that, which is
How did
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I'm not sure that. Really, the only issue there is the equity and tracking down. So we may be pulling in data that isn't relevant for our purposes here.
Sure.
I can't see the color scheme. What's green and blue on those bars?
The green is corp notes, and then the dark blue is agency. And the lighter blue is equities. So increase in agencies starting about 2022, at least for school districts and charter schools. That's been growing. The treasury was a spike, but it's been kind of lower over the years. Still interesting though.
I'm guessing one reason for that is we started putting more treasuries in the PTIF in 2023, 2024.
Well, but this isn't us, this is
I know.
everything that's outside of the.
I know, so they're looking at our
Oh.
portfolio
Oh,
and saying, oh, you should have more treasuries. Because the PTIF doesn't have very many treasuries, and then once.
Yeah, oh, I see.
And
Yeah, we could be influencing that, but also I think just the supply, I think, you know, there's. There's just not enough supply for large amounts to. Put it into corporate securities right now.
Yeah, it's hard to.
Okay. So it sounds to me like maybe something we could help with is maybe put like tables with some raw data in there below this, so you could see some of the underlying stuff going on that's building up into these charts. Would that be helpful for you guys?
Are you talking about this particular information here?
Um,
Because I don't know that that's necessarily all that helpful.
Yeah, that's not right.
yeah.
Interesting, though.
yeah,
Do you want the ability to like filter out some of these? So if you said, we don't want to look at equities, you just take it out of this chart.
I don't think that's the issue, I just don't think that that's the. No one that I've talked to is questioning how this money is being invested in terms of. What it's being invested in, I think everybody recognizes the treasurer and. Assuming the local entities are doing a great job of. Managing this, the question is. That I'm hearing is, why is this getting so big, and you know, what is the nature of these funds and. It's what policy implications that has. And so I think some of the percentage increases in the types of funds, and those are the kind of things that. Most of the questions that I'm hearing.
Sure, makes a lot of sense. And I think that per survey will go out, will help probably provide some context. You know. I saw you sent out that video earlier too about different bank types and what's being deposited in local versus national banks. And Marcy, you had this earlier, but it's interesting to see that like national is kind of is taking up the largest share. We have regional, a little bit of local. And some that we didn't know, so it might be helpful if possible, if I could send out a list to you guys, like a Google spreadsheet. How do you guys get your own kind of like, oh, this bank would be.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see how you, because how you think about just the. When you say national, what is that?
Yeah,
Are you using it?
Yeah, we did it based off of, since we're not experts on any of these things, how I did it, I just researched how many locations are open in different. Places and things like that to determine that distinction. I'm not sure if that's exactly how.
Those Zions, would you put them in a. What category did you put them?
Science is put in as a regional thing for this one, just based on different Google searches and everything like that, so. It would be great to have your guys' opinions on that, of where you would classify these different banks.
Would Wells Fargo be regional as well or national?
Wells Fargo is determined as national.
We're not solid on any of these, you can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we just tried to get a base grouping based on just some like banks and everything for.
I think for purposes of, in credit unions,
Yeah,
that's getting harder and harder to determine the same issues. But the purposes of what we're talking about when it comes to where do we put these reserves? What we're interested in is, are they lending locally? And that's so Wells Fargo would be, but they obviously are making a lot of loans in the Utah market. So Chase as well. So this may not be really relevant at all. What we're gonna have to probably get to at some point is measuring, are these these reserves being deployed in Utah? And of course, with a local bank, that's pretty easy. But with a national bank, it gets a little more difficult. But I mean,
how would you ever decide for sure whether or not the amount, as well, just not on the amount of resources for Wells Fargo or Chase? By every indication, they would be national. How is it even feasible to determine whether or not the money they're lending here is proportional to the amount that is being invested this way?
being deposited.
Yeah, that is a little.
There's a summary of deposit reports to the, FDIC, they publish a summary of deposit reports where we get an idea of what deposits are in each branch, so to speak. I should talk about this.
They do have to report a metric of their loans to deposits by state, so we can show that metric for Wells, but it's kind of going to be just a really rough high level metric. It's not going to tell you the type of lending they're doing, but I can show you where that data is, but
Yeah.
Well, as long as where I'm always coming back to is being able to justify the metric that we use, so as long as we're able to put that in there, or how we determined they were not national, because I think to the novice, it would be Jason and Wells Fargo would be national. To move them to a regional or to a local, we would have to have something like that to say, this is how we determine that.
What I'm saying is that the moniker of national, regional, local is probably irrelevant to what we're analyzing. What we're going to analyze is where are they deploying. We as a state, if let's say Chase weren't in Utah, we would, I would say let's say Chase and Wells in US and we weren't here. We would probably have an initiative to convince them to come here. They're collecting deposits all over the country and then making loans in Utah, and I don't know what the reports would show, but for the most part, banks are there are a lot of banks doing business in Utah, lending in Utah, but not collecting deposits in Utah. UMB, Hillcrest is now opening branch collecting deposits, but typically they come here first to loan because they're saying, hey, this is a hot economy, hot place, and so we're going to come here and make loans, and always upsets the banks that are already here, because there's just competitive stuff. And then if they have a lot of success, then they'll open a branch and they'll start collecting deposits. So in effect, they're bringing deposits from Missouri and deploying them in Utah, which is, we like that, that Utah should like that.
Right.
What we're focused on, this task force is. We've got all these deposits, potential deposits in Utah. We want them deployed in Utah, so what we'd have to do is somehow, if we determine that that's a priority. Deploy these public reserves to grow the economy here in Utah. And we're gonna deposit it in Wells Fargo, and we have to have some metric to determine, yes, net Wells is lending more than they're collecting in deposits here. That they,
Yeah, it is just that metric of being, because intuitively, even to me, who's not a novice at this. My instinct is, well, those two would be national, so if anything data wise. I would expect to see either the explanation or the determination of how we came to local versus national. That's my only concern. So as long as I have a metric to say. And we made this determination based on this, and we're fully transparent over how we determine the difference between.
what I'm saying is that determination is probably not relevant. The determination we want to focus in on whether they're a nationally chartered bank or regional, however we look at it. Are they lending here? Are they net lenders or are they net depositors? Are they taking our deposits and lending them in Idaho? Or are they bringing deposits from Massachusetts and lending them in Utah? So it's net lender is probably what we're mostly interested in versus whatever the national, regional, local. Because we have some local banks that are national lenders. Right? I was Celtic Bank, local one branch bank, and they're like the 5th largest SBA lender in the country. And where would you say their deposits come from? Are they brokers? So we don't know where those deposits are coming from.
Yeah, that bank in particular is more wholesale funded, but
Yeah.
I think like most of our community banks in Utah. They're almost exclusively lending within the state, not all of them, but the majority are. They're taking deposits, they're almost certainly making small business loans in Utah for the most part. So,
Real estate loans, a lot of real estate, right?
yeah, a lot of commercial real estate, a lot of commercial and industrial.
Yeah.
It's kind of the bread and butter of community banks is local small business lending.
So to the auditor's point, we'll probably want to come up with a moniker, but it probably won't be these. Is that?
Yeah, that's fine. We're sure, David, you get to analyze it however you want. We just want to make sure that we're clear. Because if anyone didn't know, this dashboard seems to have not been a secret anymore. And it's the most requested item out of my office right now, is they want.
Who else knows about it besides us?
Well, Brian Malecki apparently.
Interest.
Wait, this isn't public?
Anybody who looks at the,
Full Brian.
Brian is probably on our website, and these are public meetings. So if he read any of the minutes or watched any of the recordings, you would have seen that.
I guess I didn't realize that the
I shouldn't
data
have
that you
said
create
that.
isn't, this is not public data.
This
It has to be,
Okay,
Yeah,
is it just out there so he can go give it the.
yeah, my point is that the discussion regarding the balances on hand has become a hotter issue this summer as local districts have gone forward with tax increase. So you have HB2 and how that's playing in, and then how their cash reserves are also already out there. And so we keep getting the question over clarifying, are the tax increases based on HB2? Are they, or could they have used cash and cash equivalents and instead of going for a tax increase? So it's becoming, which is pushing a lot more attention on the work that we were doing here into a broader policy discussion statewide. I just think that this task force should probably be aware of that conversation happening and why we're getting the additional questions about it at this point. So that's the question from when can the public have access to the information?
can you explain the chart itself that shows 40 billion? What it's, I mean. So the amount of deposits that are. State-owned entities have, or-
Remind me which one this one was.
So 40 billion at the top.
Yeah, this will be in the miscellaneous one. Sorry, there's just a lot of charts and so this one doesn't have a break. Yeah. You usually aggregate all the deposits for that on the investment.
For this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just aggregated all of the like deposits and everything, put those together,
Right.
for each determination of like. Bank type is national.
Oh, okay,
So what are we categorized, national, regional and?
Yeah, national, regional, local, and then we have a couple unknowns that I just hadn't put anything in because it was difficult to determine and.
so those are deposits in Utah?
Yes, meaning the governmental entities, so these are my deposits, here's the bank that is deposited at.
Yeah, that must be the total deposit in Utah at the banks. It's not. It's not excluding. Anybody, it's saying all deposits.
Yeah.
Well, why is there no green? Yeah, there.
Should be some.
It's
local-
there.
Yeah.
It's just really tiny.
Yeah.
So we're saying that there's. Cause I
This is,
know a lot
this
of
is not.
public entities.
This is not just public entities. There's no way public entities have $40 billion on deposit.
Yeah, I'm thinking this one, we might need to double check.
That's what I'm saying, it's the totals on deposit in Utah.
Yeah, but we gotta-
Some rooms
We wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of public entities that do utilize the local data. Cause we see the reports that come from DFI that show. The totals and there's a lot of local banks on there and a lot of municipal. Funds are invested in local banks.
Yeah.
Also,
But wait a minute, give me the number again, because I can't see it from over here.
40 billion was.
40 million, 400 million.
So you have to realize between we have 1,800 government entities across the state, we're pushing 100 billion. In assets. We're talking about what's on their balance sheet. We're talking about.
Yeah, but the
But
PTIF
that's
are most.
total assets, I'm not
Yeah.
talking about cash. And there could be some problem here, I just don't want the room to think that there's not 40 billion, because it is entirely possible for us. You have to consider how many government entities are in this.
Well, if you took the PTIF at 35 billion and then said 40 billion on top of that.
So. Yeah, remember how many entities we have and how many cash accounts, so that not everything they have is in investments. That's a number I'm really confident in, because I've been saying it for 2 years, that oversight over 100 billion should not be happening lightly.
Cause I was thinking when I saw 40, I was thinking PTIF plus, we're saying there's a possibility there's PTIF plus that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we're right, but I do want to
Yeah.
clarify that it is not an impossibility that there is that in cash, because we're talking about 1,800 government agencies. And there are cash deposits for all of those entities. So when you're talking about an overall number, you want to narrow it down to a specific, that's not just school districts, but you have to take into consideration just how many government entities there are across the state.
Well, I would hope that most entities would have the vast majority invested, that they wouldn't carry idle balances. That are greater than their investment balances, because that's,
Why would you hope that?
huh?
That's what we're here to discuss.
Well. Yeah, if the idle
not
balances
touching this one.
don't give them anything other than, whatever.
But before it goes to a deeper dive, we'll want to go back and check the numbers and make sure that we're right. I just want everyone to know that I'm not convinced that just off the top of my head that could be wrong. So. But we'll go back and check, because we want to make sure that we're correct. But
Well, and they're and they're all at, most of it's at national banks, which is. That's, yeah, again, your definition of national bank, but it sounds like you got it right. That's fascinating,
But if you go up to the table that shows the unrestricted cash and what else do we have up there?
This one.
Yeah. The
So.
total government fund balance, would that give us? Better sense, I guess that would include PTIF though, right?
This would be just a different government types. It could include PTIF. Yeah,
Cause school districts, it looks like. That's 3.8 million, but if you go to unrestricted cash, they have 5 billion.
Is there a total number there? Yeah, where would you see it total?
So yeah,
At the very bottom of the 16th row?
You know what? That's a great point. Let's add some subtotals to that table.
yeah,
So what I think, take away from that bank one, we need to probably get a better definition of. Maybe like senders versus lenders, or some other kind of category.
Well, what I'm hearing is that that may not be where the task force wants to go, so let's focus at this point on what is usable and what they do want to see and let's focus our energies on that, Alex, just time wise for us, because we're going into our busy season at this point. So we want to make sure that the work that we're doing, that we're productive and we're giving you what you need. And that's where we're spending our focus.
So I agree, we can get together with you guys, figure out some kind of good metric for those that are. Depositing and deploying money in Utah versus not, but we'll need you guys. Your help.
Oh, yeah, we can get to that.
Okay.
I think we're still at, what's the number? I mean,
Yeah, I think the more the issue is what is making up that 40 billion? Yeah, that's what I don't know the answer to unless I'm missing something in this room, somebody knows, like.
Well,
what-
also what is macroly, what is the top line number and macroly and that's important. And then you begin to see the specific pieces. So great work though, at this point. Thank you.
But when you say 1,800, that's all in here, right?
Yeah, that's why it's hard, because we have right from state government down to a cemetery district, you're talking, they're all in here. So it is a massive difference between large and small, but they're all here.
So that's all here, so that's all that's great, and then the total, subtotals, whatever would be helpful, because it sounds like we might have the PTIF plus 40 billion.
This
And
must include the PTIF, I think it's gotta include the PTIF, that's what I'm guessing, and I think you must have the PTIF lumped in as a national bank some way.
So.
Cause I know that the PTIF is reported in the deposit section.
Right.
That's where people report those balances, it's not down in the investment section, and so. I think you're just lumping the PTIF in, I think that's the.
yeah, cause in the deposits, the bar chart above, it showed the deposits. And it was pink and something else. Going up.
This is what I think. Yeah. This one you're talking about, Marlo?
It's going across, the bar chart is.
can you select bank, is the PTIF in there?
Yeah, that's, it
This one?
showed deposits, it was like deposits and PTIF was one of the deposit
Yes,
categories.
so you just need.
Right there.
Yeah,
It was a chart, yeah, there was
yeah,
deposit level by bank type, so PTIF is in there,
right, we just need to take PTIF out,
so that's the bulk of loan.
cause that's actually an investment, it's kind of in the wrong section.
Yeah, so on this chart, make sure PTIF's out.
Yeah,
And I think earlier, I think I said, or we were saying this was this is all the deposits. This, I'm looking in the actual server code, this is actually investments, it's the state. So this is total investments. Maybe stop. December DNI reports. What banks are those? So we'll get the deposit one instead of using the investments in here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so you exclude all the investments, including the PTIF
Okay.
from the, that'll tell you. And then. I still think local should be larger than that, 'cause I know there's a lot of governmental entities that. Prefer to have their deposits locally.
Well, they'll probably show up when you get the PTIF out of there.
Yeah, that's totally true.
This is all really helpful context, guys, thank you, yeah. What other thoughts do you need that we need to? Should filter?
I saw money market funds.
Yeah.
If you go up to the deposits, you might have.
Back on that other page.
Yeah, right there. So you have sweet savings. Money market fund and checking. Would you take money market fund out? That doesn't seem, yeah.
Well, except. I don't know if like that, they're using that as a bank sweep, like if they're,
But would that be the sweep account? Oh, you're saying. you
I
could-
don't know, I mean, cause it's all depending on how.
Yeah.
The public entity categorize them,
Categorize.
you know, because this is all submitted by the entities themselves. So if they categorize their sweeps as a money market fund.
But then how would you
But you need to know
categorize it
what
by
those are.
bank if? Yeah, I guess.
Right, well, really, it should show up, like, because the other one's reporting by bank, so if the money market fund is. Because there's a column that has bank, and then it's like type, right? So I guess I don't care, as long as it's not the PTIF. If it's bank and then money market or money or sweep or whatever, that's still deposits within the bank, and what the bank decides to do with it, that's up to the bank.
Yeah.
But that's still a deposit in the bank. Does that make sense? So I think you still
Most
count
likely.
those, yeah.
Yeah, it's doubtful that, well, I guess I don't know if they're putting it in there themselves or if it's just part of a bank account, you know.
Yeah, well, when you open a bank account and they say, well, what do you wanna do with your balances? You know, you can set up a sweep or whatever, if that's what you wanna do. But. I don't know, I still say that counts as bank deposits, so.
Yeah, the most important thing is to get the investments out of that
Mhm.
number.
Sure. Sure, okay.
Yeah,
So what I'm hearing is, let's get that number more narrowed down, make sure we're excluding the P-tip. For now, keep all the other types, but maybe have a breakdown so you could see what they would. If you needed to exclude them, we'll assume they're all just P-tip, right? Does that seem fair?
yeah,
Okay. Should be easy, I think we can get that probably knocked out early next week. Guys.
And if you could share the methodology for bank type, that'd be
Yeah.
great too.
I think the methodology was just kind of.
Just looking around, just to get a base kind of graphic.
So how about we do this, if you got a list of the banks, we take the input or whatever, where you want them ranked.
If you provided your list though, when you went down it. And we can look at it and say, okay, that's probably not right, but
Can we do that?
Yeah, we can totally do that. How about we make like a little Google sheet with all the different bank names that we have in here,
yeah,
and then you guys can just.
the hardest ones, but it might be the spreadsheet. So.
Well, just, and include how you categorize it.
Sure.
That'd be a good start,
Or not security service, that.
because you got probably.
yeah, I'm guessing you're mostly right.
The outliers be the ones that come back from wacky, so.
I don't know about Alpha Bank,
So, yeah.
categorize Alpha Bank as a regional or a local,
They're regional,
yeah.
they're part of
regional.
Glacier Bank now.
I have that as regional right now, but there were some weird ones, I think it was like Glacier Bank or something, cause like when I was looking around, they. Accumulated some other things or whatnot, it's a lot of looking around,
that is
there's
a
a
great-
lot of like differences.
That's that's one of the toughest
So,
ones, because
yeah.
they're a model of they buy banks, but then
Yeah.
they leave them local, so. They would argue, First Community Bank is still a local bank. They've tried to, kind of consolidate the compliance functions and the costs associated with those things, but they left the local management and the local brand and, try to keep it as local. So we can debate. I don't think it's a critical debate to have, but I can see why it would be confusing to you to try to get in and say, what is going on here?
Yeah. But it'd be great to have everybody's input for that to be able to narrow those down more.
We can hammer that out in 20 minutes.
Yeah. But I'm, again, in the end, I'm much more interested in this net lending issue. And I think Utah generally is a net lending state. People are coming here to make loans because they view our economy as being hot. Very few banks are here to get deposits and take them somewhere else. That's just the way we are right now economically. Sorry.
Utah has loan growth of like 10% overall. Nationwide, it's like 1 or 2, so.
You said no.
If you look at loan growth,
Wow.
just in banks overall in Utah, it's like 10% year over year. Nationwide, it's like pretty much flat, so.
Okay.
Just strength of our economy.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Looks like we've got about 25 minutes. Do we want to maybe pivot over to the survey and make sure we get to that, or do we want to, we have more questions or concerns about the dashboard? Yes, and if this is that same link we sent out before, if more questions or issues pop up, shoot me an email, give me a call, happy to tackle things as time goes on. Thanks, guys.
Well, Brittany's got the. Third one.
We sent this out this morning. You all had seen the draft Word document prior, and we incorporated the feedback we've received into this version, which is in a survey platform. So this first page provides a background as to what we're doing, to hopefully encourage participation. Contact information so we can get in touch with whoever's filling it out should we have follow-up questions. Changing that position in unrestricted cash equivalents. We have a number of questions here. Any feedback on this?
So just the title of this particular page. For school districts, we're not going to recognize unrestricted cash and cash equivalents because we don't carry that on our balance sheets. So we just have cash in investments.
Okay.
So we would need to know, at least provide a definition, what is it particularly we're looking for? Because we might have to drop down to our reserves and say, are you looking for committed and assigned, or what have we defined as restricted? Because we'll stumble over that. We'll say 0. We don't carry that, but we don't report it that way on our balance sheet.
So to that, so your comment earlier about. You asked about, is it the same for a capital project? You said that's not, these are truly unrestricted. Are you saying that's not the case with the data coming from school districts?
So what our local government team will do is, depending on the government type, they've been theoretically trained to know about those differences. So they'll pull out the difference.
Okay. So it's not an issue. I get it.
It's sure.
When you start seeing it, I thought.
Well, that's why I make sure, because I did check numbers earlier and they were totals. But I didn't have subcategories. I provided subcategories. They said, here's my assigned, unassigned, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
But I was only looking at the grand total number. So I am a little confused. I don't know if it
Do
is.
you know how
or
this
is it-
translates to school districts, like when you guys are looking at unrestricted cash balances and you're pulling that from school district financials? Do you know which categories go into this that you could provide and provide a definition or something out there with the survey?
Because our government wide will have consolidated all our funds.
Right, yeah, so that's what I'm saying, you gotta be doing that, right?
Yeah, they are, and I'll get with Seth Olson from our team to make sure. Give you that.
Yeah,
So
so
all of these get make sure that we have those definitions as well as that.
Did you check those ones?
Yeah, I can check, because my gut feel is just looking at the numbers, it's gotta have capital fund balances and debt service balances in there, because there's not that much in the general fund side, but.
Yeah, I would like to make sure that we're really letting up on that one, so if you'll double check our categories for us to make sure that.
Yeah, and it's just to show it's a little tricky. The idea is, are there monies in deposit at a bank? Well, they could still be at the bank, even though they're restricted for purpose.
Right.
They're not restricted for investments. So,
Right.
so that's where we kind of like have two different worlds that we're bringing together with one term. And I want to answer
The right question.
right
I mean,
question for what we're
it goes to a bigger question on what is restricted and what isn't, and whether it's statutorily restricted or whether or not it is institutionally restricted. And there are different definitions all the way across in all the different entities, because there are some allowances. So this is gonna be, I think that's actually the biggest problem for this task force, is to be able to determine,
how to fill that apart.
yeah, how to fill that up.
And that's why these questions can be hard for business administrators, school districts, like. Asking for.
Exactly.
I can tell you, but I don't know what it is you want, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we want to create a lot of work for you either, so I think we want to make it as consistent with what you're already providing.
Yeah.
As possible. Because I mean, there are two different things going on here. When we talk at the legislature about these balances, it's like, wow, how did we get this much money, and what's going on, and where did it come from, and what is it being reserved for, and is there something we need to look at? So this is that part of the equation, and then there's this part of what are we doing with this asset? And this survey, I think, is more provide legislators an understanding of why is this happening? You know, what's being reserved for? Is it restricted because you're gonna build something, or? So I think that's what this survey is really getting at. And we want to be fair, right? They're asking the question because it's a big number. So now we want to give them as clear, fair, honest a picture as possible.
Yeah, and for example, I've got $50 million to pay for OPEBs. And it's in the PTIF account. So
What is OPEB?
Post-employment benefits. So these are commitments to employees into the future. 25-year rule. I got it. Yeah, I'm gonna say it's restricted and should justifiably be restricted. But I could be investing it. I could have it in the bank instead of the PTIF. So you have one piece of the puzzle, and it could answer two totally different questions. And that's, just want to be careful that we know which one I'm trying to answer, because I can answer this and say, I have nothing unrestricted because it's committed to OPEBs. But I could be answering the other question, and it's also available for investment in the state of Utah. I can answer both.
I guess he would be concerned about that. Mine would be is there anything to be returned to the taxpayer? But no, because it needs to go to be paying for benefits years down the road.
And in that regard, it probably needs to be growing with the market.
Well, that's part of our computation is to make sure we're able to handle inflationary adjustments, salary increases happening.
Right. So.
And so I think these are connected, because there's gonna be, you know, when you look at $40 billion, some of it needs to be in the market. If, you know, if it's to pay benefits down the road.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think this.
Yes, we're not just sitting on cash because I have a commitment. It's like I need it to grow.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I think we want to understand is,
Boosting
and why has it grown so much in the last few years? And
Absolutely.
so here's this stuff, and then there's this thing, and we got to understand it.
And I would argue that OPEB should probably be invested more aggressively than just in the PTIF. You should be looking to exempt those funds and put it into a longer asset allocation.
Yeah, because
Those are probably the most.
sorry, you just talked to an accountant, because we're really risk averse.
Well,
If we're both retired, then
you gotta look at risk in different ways, because there's a risk that your assets don't grow at the rate of inflation. right? And that is a big risk as well, and so I understand there's valuation risk when you take on a broader asset allocation that includes equities and other risk-based assets, but that's why endowments invest in those asset classes, is because they're mitigating other risks to the endowment, which helps preserve the spending power of the endowment. So OPEB has defined liabilities, but they're longer term liabilities, right? And so,
Yeah.
you know, just like a pension, you would never expect URS to leave all of their money in the PTIF, right? That would not be the prudent thing to do with all of our pension money. I would say this kind of follows the same logic, right? You need to, you know, be thinking about mitigating risk holistically, not just the market risk.
And I'm not arguing any of that, I just answering the survey.
Yeah.
I don't know what answer to give you, because it's zero with no definition. And I know the two stories that are running parallel here.
So should we say it would be unassigned and uncommitted? Or what would you recommend? would be-
For a business administrator, yeah, we've snapped that, I mean, we can pull that off our financial statements in 2 seconds. If we don't already have it memorized. Those are the two we spend most of our time talking about with the board.
Cause I think that's, I'll double check with Seth, cause I'm not the CPA in the room, but for Jason, you can speak up on it, but I think that's probably what we would want.
Yeah. Probably be the better. If it's, and it's, we're trying, like we said, it's trying to get across so many varieties of governments and stuff like that, and so just being able to pull that information and what makes sense. Well, be the easiest thing, I think.
Once we have that clarified,
Is change in net position, so this is the next one, change in net position is pretty universal, right? For governmental entities, there's no question on what that would be.
I'm sorry, you didn't say that one again.
Change, I was just wondering if change in net position, if we need further explanation like the previous question. Or if everybody will know how to answer this question if we ask about their change in net position, and I think the answer is everybody understands this one pretty well.
Is that the right, I mean, the change to me says how much increase or decrease from one year to the next, but it doesn't tell you what that value
It
is.
doesn't tell you why it changed.
Well, it doesn't tell you what the value, the absolute value is.
Change in net position, yeah, it'll be an absolute dollar.
So think of change, think of this as profit margin. Okay, from a corporate.
I don't know.
We don't call it that in government,
Until you get your URS statement and they tell you what you're changing. The ability is that totally changes your net position, you have nothing to do with it other than their investment strategies and commitments to the fund.
But that's above the line on your change in that position, right? That's.
No, it's still.
That's after, okay.
It's in the net position, so that's why net positions, there's a lot of story going on. Of net position.
So one of the things I think we're trying to do with the survey is be a little bit open-ended about the explanations. That way, you know, if there's things like that are like, yeah, but you gotta understand this, this, and this, there's opportunity for CFOs to provide that context.
Yeah, because I could have a net position this last year that was $9 million, it was all attributable to URS.
Okay, great.
And
Those are things we're trying to get at.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the answer in a lot of cases of, you know, what's going on.
Yeah.
so this next question, if there's a trend, what factors do you think contributed to it? Should capture some of that. And we asked about forecast over the next 3 years. Do you believe your current and expected future changes in that position align with the mission and needs of your organization? Or do you consider it too high or low? What has been your organization's annual unrestricted cash and cash equivalents for the last 10 years? And then the note, that's when the Office of State Auditor began collecting.
And assuming we define what we're looking for.
And then we're defining that term.
Yes.
Because that's not a universally defined term, but it sounds like.
And again, explaining trends, forecast, and expectations. I guess any other feedback on page? Reserves and cash on hand, so we added the definition, due to feedback that we received. So what has been the annual change in days cash on hand for the organization for the past 10 years? If a trend toward higher days cash on hand is evident, of what attributed to it, again, the explanation, forecast over 3 years. And is that your expectations too high or too low based on organization's mission and operational demand? Why not? And
What kind of response are you looking for there? Because the safe answer is yes.
yeah, safe answers, yes.
Well, it's basically, you know, if you got double the amount of cash that you had 4 years ago. How are you justifying it? It might be, well, yeah, because rather than bonding, we're planning on using all this additional cash for our next capital project. We got these capital projects coming up, and so that's what we're going to use this money for. Okay.
So I think more about it's going to be the why or why not.
Yeah.
Am I the only one that's getting hung up on the word change? Go up. So to me, it seems like we want to know what the days cash on hand is. Each year. Then we figure out what the change is. Right? If you're telling me what is the delta between 1 year and the next, that's a different number than the actual days cash on hand.
That's a good point.
Well,
Am I thinking about that wrong? Just, to me, I want to just give me the numbers and then we can figure out what the change is and then you get the trend.
Other than, I think we're compelled to do the computation to answer the rest of the question.
Yeah.
So do we see a trend?
Yeah,
Are we conscious of the trend?
Right,
Is there a
but-
purpose behind it.
yes, but if you're just reporting on the absolute numbers, you'll see that trend. Right, you're aware of the trend.
Yeah.
Or at least it's asking you to opine on
demonstrate
that,
it.
but if they're giving us the change. I don't think that gives us what we want.
That's a good point. Maybe we add an additional question before the change question to say,
what is that?
What is your days cash?
Although you can calculate that, right? Like, we already have the data to calculate what their days cash on hand is. What we're really asking them is to identify the trend and explain the trend. We're looking for their knowledge, not so much on what their current position is, because we have that data. It's how do you explain the trend? So we're highlighting, I think by looking at the change, we're highlighting the trend and then asking for explanations on the trend. We're not necessarily needing them to tell us what their data is. Because we have that, you know, you guys have done, Alex has done a great job of aggregating the actual data.
yeah, I think there's value in asking the CFO to do the computation. So then you know what it is or we assume you know what you're looking at.
Right.
So you just say, tell us what you're doing. We notice your cash on hand has changed. Tell us about that.
Yeah,
What do you mean?
right.
Mhm.
it could be good too, because data entry errors happen for everybody, so the data we do have in aggregated could be different than what's up the file.
Yeah.
Right,
With
yeah.
a lot of-
Yeah. It's
So are we adding a question?
Yeah, I think let's add a question. I can help you write that.
Okay,
after.
thank you. Next set of questions, reasons for changes in cash assets and investments. So this gets into the federal stimulus funding. First question, how much federal stimulus funding has your organization received in the past 5 years? To what extent have these funds directly or indirectly contributed toward your change in net position or days cash on hand? To what extent has the increase in interest income from PTIF or other investments contributed to any increase in net position or days cash on hand? How do you approach budgeting for interest income given the variability in interest rates from year to year? And in what ways have interest rates, rate trends, and credit agency requirements influence your debt strategy or reserve levels? Any issues with these or feedback? Then this final page is clarifications, feedback, and considerations, giving them a chance to clarify any information they think that we should have, that we haven't asked explicitly. As presented, weigh in on the data that's presented in the dashboard that the auditor's office has pulled together, and then any additional feedback that they'd like us to take into account more broadly. Anything missing? Any additional feedback?
So what's something you wish you asked after you close that? So,
Yeah.
what that's gonna be.
That's why you're capturing the good contacts, so you can ask them questions again.
Looks good.
Yeah, I think it more, we want, mostly we want the narrative, we want the understanding, and we want numbers. But checking the number, I mean, would be interesting as well, but.
Okay.
Good. Well, thank you.
We'll get those changes incorporated and then distribute out to this group for broader distribution as well. But we'll need your help getting it out to the CFOs.
That's entities.
Are we hoping to have all this gathered and chance to look at it by the next meeting, or is it?
I think that would be ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when is the next meeting?
Yeah, so that was my second question. Maybe it's already.
It is on the calendar.
I think
It's September, let me grab the exact date. September 24th, so it's Wednesday at the end of the day.
You don't have survey results by that date, or the survey.
We have to encourage response because quickly to get it back by then, so.
Yeah, at least for fiscal year, you're going through our audits right now, our external auditors are here.
Will there be a stern?
You're welcome.
Asked on.
It's probably for whoever
And we'll give them a gift card if they do.
If we think that's not enough time to get the data collected, we could have it before our October meeting.
I think you should say, let's see what happens.
So let's try and see what we have, and then we can do another push.
Howard, what are we gonna say?
Just, trying to figure out how to skin them.
Yeah,
When do we need the information by?
if we're reporting in October, we gotta have it for September.
That's not,
So we're
So we got
to the wire at this
November,
point.
right?
Yeah, well, we've been asked for October, so that the official, I think, is October. I'm looking at Marla to confirm because
The official report is due at the end of November. They're asking, a committee of legislatures asking us to give a presentation at one of their interim committee meetings in October with preliminary data. So that one will be the final report, but they are asking for some preliminary findings in October.
Which committee is it?
Yeah, education,
Public Ed approach?
yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, I think you can make an October report without. I mean, this is the nuance that, you know, it's probably the most important thing that we're gonna be gathering. It's important that we get a good sampling, you know, and then. And really, we have to get that nailed down before we make any kind of, the legislature makes any policy votes, so that. The ultimate deadline is, you know, January, February. Get a bill drafted and such, obviously, October, November would be. Helpful,
We have a statutory deadline of November 30th to submit report, the executive appropriations committee.
So just on the survey, I would just caution that anything that we send out, whether it's reporting or whether it's submitting reports, typically they go to their deadline and then some. So, and we're usually reminding, and there are some entities, and just based on the number, I would encourage a hard deadline, and then we can follow up with you're late. And please comply again, because we don't. Again, I'm being recorded, so they will officially know there's no stick to use on this, where it's please and pretty please, but I can send a strongly worded letter asking for it again. That's gonna be the extent of it, but typically they will go to the deadline. There are always those entities that will go right to the deadline, and then when we threaten them, they will turn it in, so.
And I don't think we're threatening, you know, like.
I realize that this
They're
is not where
trying-
anyone wants to be, but
Yeah,
welcome to the reality.
but I mean, the bottom line is, we could end up with a bad policy decision if we don't understand what we're doing.
I get it,
So it's in
and I
the
think
interest
they
to get it
should.
back to us. I think we'll get enough feedback that we'll learn enough to not make a big mistake next session.
Well, and typically, and I should clarify that will typically happen with the smaller entities who are not going to understand it. And those are not the ones we're focused on. So if you can get the majority of them in, and it is the ones that do have the large balances, then you have good data. It is going to be the ones who we handhold through the reporting process anyway, that will struggle. So keep that in mind, so as it comes in, where the number will be large, it will not necessarily be the more affluent or large.
It's very, I agree, it'll definitely be like herding some cats.
Yeah.
But I think maybe a September deadline, like we request it be done end of September, that would give us 2 weeks before the appropriation can be, and more can trickle in. I think if we don't need to, like Tina said, we don't have any like enforcement on the survey, but if we tell them like, people are gonna make decisions with what you say, you have a good incentive to tell folks what's going on. There should be some pretty highly motivated people, I think, to give some good data.
We're gonna find out.
Yeah, I don't know if they September 15th.
But I would say
Deadline.
September 15th. I don't want to go late.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get data back.
Well, and it maybe that's a tight deadline and they got issues going. I mean, can we make it any simpler? Is there, I mean, we just went through the survey. Is there anything that we don't need in that? I don't. You, Brittany.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can take a look at that.
Yeah.
We'll review it and see.
I think we could go through and say like required, optional. on
Yeah.
some. That kind of stuff, but we've kind of got it, I think it's bare bones as we can, because these are really the lingering questions that our data can answer without some kind of narrative or explanations.
The rest of the story.
Yeah.
And then back,
School districts, if you get probably the top 6 that are on any ranking report, and probably have 90% of their dollars.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's all they know how to know is to chase down, but they won't have.
6 counties, school districts.
Who is sending out the survey?
all of us.
Is it the auditor's office, or is it the treasurer, or is it the task force? Or legislative umbrella? I'm just wondering, when they get it, we would like them to, I think, to understand, we're not threatening you, but some decisions are going to be made, and it would be well to receive your assistance on getting good information back. And so I'm just curious under what umbrella it goes out and.
So I think it's going out through our request, through our system for the request, but it will be coming from the task force, but if you want the return address to be.
And then I think it would be really helpful for follow-up from these committee members, just to make sure that they've received, at least the larger ones received it. and-
Well, I'll be reaching out already this afternoon, say heads up.
It's
Excellent.
yeah.
There's an important survey coming for
And-
about some time.
I think coming from the auditor is the best place because they know the auditor can withhold funds. If they
Not in the-
report back, so
We don't want.
we don't have to make an explicit threat, but you know, where's that implied?
Yeah.
It's implied, right?
And then I promised the timeline on the investment studies. They're going to provide, University of Chicago through TUR is going to provide their interim report by September 30th and final report by October 30th.
Thank you.
Well, we gotta align our meetings with that, and so I think the next big topic is probably gonna be that
Mhm.
study interim or final, so.
We have the preliminary, you said September 30th.
Yeah, they'll have their preliminary by September 30th, so it'd be the October meeting that we would discuss that interim report, and then November meeting would finalize everything.
So we'll have from the 15th to the 30th to try and synthesize the answers that come from this CFOs into kind of a narrative that brings it all together, right, for that meeting on the 30th, because that's gonna be a lot of work too. You
Well, the
know,
meeting
because this is
on
all
the
narrative,
meeting's
right?
on the October 24th, so this was separate, so these deadlines they just scheduled for the investment study by the University of Chicago.
Oh,
We're giving a deadline on the survey of September 15th, and I think that I said that the next meeting is September 24th. Yes, September 24th.
to talk about that, to talk about the results of the survey.
And added detail,
We won't have.
any other
from
dashboard
Chicago.
data.
Do we wanna
That doesn't-
align the meeting on the 24th to at least give us more time on the survey results or getting a preliminary report from Chicago? I mean, I'm just wondering what that, maybe the 24th meeting.
That's just not a lot of time to synthesize all of those narratives, because if you got a whole bunch of narratives coming through and you're trying to synthesize that into a story that tells what's going on overall, generally speaking, that's.
Just give it to AI.
I was actually thinking about that, I'm like, I wonder if you can throw that into ChatGPT and have it synthesize it all, but.
And come up with some extra things.
By interpreting.
Yes, exactly. Hey, before we officially break, I wanted to make sure that everyone knows that today is Marcy's last day and she's done an incredible amount of work, but we are losing her back to BYU. Oh, I appreciate all of the work she's done on this.
Thank you, Marcy. It's been awesome. You're amazing. Auditor, how come we're losing her? Where's she going?
She's going back to her senior year at BYU. Somehow she thinks this is more important. I don't know.
Can't imagine that. Can't imagine
Yeah.
that. Well, let's stay in touch and get
Get
you
her
back.
back in the spring. Yeah.
What are you studying?
Statistics.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Marcy.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.